Welcome back to the latest on the fourth period presented by CCM Hockey. I'm Kate Pettersen, joined by David Pagnotta to break down the latest in the NHL. And Dave, we talked about it the other day, but hot topic again, the Nashville Predators. Barry Trotz made some comments about a rebuild. Now, they were kind of taken out of context, but what it didn't do is seemingly spark the team. They've lost 3 in a row now, so I'm going to ask you this again a couple days later. Is anything brewing?
Well, Barry admitted that he's trying. He's looking around and seeing what's available out there. But going back to what we said earlier this week, he's not going to rush into any moves just for the sake of doing one. Now, he is doing his due diligence and exploring just like everybody else. And yes, he would like to help improve his team, specifically, with a second line center. And right now, they're line juggling all over the place to try to get things going. And the frustration is brewing even more now. But they're not just going to tear everything down. They're not just going to spend all that money they did in July and say, forget about it. We're just going to go in a different direction. Not that soon. So there's still hope. There's still a belief that they can get out of this one, Kate, but it's going to take an effort on the ice in order to propel them forward. Barry Trotz is going to look to see how they perform. How can he add some pieces to complement their game and improve the overall system right now? But again, the rebuild, that's down the road. Let's see next summer if we need to improve and start embracing that type of plan. But for now, they're focused on trying to improve. And if Barry Trotz can add to this group, and he has cap space, he's got a little over $4.7 million in space right now, so they can add, but nobody is going to throw him a life preserver. So he's going to hang tight until he finds the right deal.
Well, they're back at it again. They're home for 1. They host Utah tomorrow night here in Nashville. So we'll see if they can put something together on home ice. Now, rebuild seems to be the theme right now around the league with a handful of teams, and Anaheim is another one in more of a true rebuild. So a shaky start to the season isn't really surprising. Cam Fowler's name thrown around as a potential trade earlier ahead of the season. Is that something that might materialize now?
This is another, you've got a lot of defensemen that are out there that have a little bit of term on their contract. He's at $6.5 million. He's got another year on his contract after this season, Kate. And he's somebody, as you mentioned, there was talk at the start of the season and in preseason about at least figuring out the different pathways they could take if they want to move him. He wants to go to a contender, just like John Gibson, the goaltender there as well. They're kind of over this little rebuild situation that they're in. But because of that extra year, that value is propped up a little bit. He's not on an expiring deal. This isn't a rental situation. So those conversations will continue as the season progresses. And there was another defenseman out there in Columbus, Ivan Provorov, who also similar situation, but is going to be at the top of a wish list because of his contractual status. With Fowler's 1 extra year, you're going to get a little bit more value. Anaheim would probably retain a portion of that contract to help a deal moving forward. So we'll keep monitoring things in Anaheim. It doesn't sound like anything is imminent from that perspective, but teams are certainly starting to do, their due process, find out what the options are, and Fowler is certainly on some teams' radars, along with some of their prospective unrestricted free agents up front. Frank Vatrano, Robbie Fabry, and Brock McGinn, all 3 on expiring deals. Not the greatest of starts for them, so that might extend closer to the deadline.
Well, we talk about making some moves, and a guy that likes to kind of stir the pot a little bit, John Tortorella, made a stir in Philly. Presumably the fans were up in arms on that one, but electing to sit Matvei Michkov. They went on to win in a shootout. They're also in a rebuild right now, and they've got some veteran pieces. So who are some of the names on that team that we might see other teams hungry for, especially a little bit later in the season when they're looking to add?
Yeah, similar to Fowler in Anaheim, Kate, these guys that I'm about to mention, they've got more term on their contract. Scott Laughton's got another year on his deal. Nick Delorier has another year on his deal. And Rasmus Ristolainen has a few more years left on his contract. So these are 3 players that we're going to look at as we get closer to the trade deadline in March that teams are going to circle in on and see, hey, how can we pounce on one of these guys, not just for this playoff run, but for next year as well. Laughton and Ristolainen's names have been in and around the trade market and the rumor mill for the last couple of seasons. They don't have no trade protection, So it's going to be a little bit easier for Philadelphia to make those types of moves as they continue their rebuild process. They kind of overachieved a little bit last season, which was nice to see for some guys, but this year, a little bit more down to earth. And yes, I know Mishkov is the prize. He's the guy, but he's the future guy. You can learn off the ice as well. I got no problems with the fact that they sat him. His 5-on-5 numbers haven't been overly impressive, despite his good numbers offensively. So it's all part of the process, as Tort says. And Danny Briere and company, they're going to go through their process in trying to make moves closer to the deadline later on in the season. But those are guys to watch.
All right, last one. Let's flip the switch over to the women's side. Canada-USA rivalry series, and then we've got the PWHL. Their training camps kicking off next week in Toronto and in Montreal. So we're taking the out of rebuild. This is a build, and I want to know the T because they've talked about playing some games at neutral sites that coincide with potential expansion teams. Do you have some insight into where those expansion teams could be?
Yeah, they made some headlines a week or so ago about the fact that they've opened up their expansion process and are going to officially start looking at different markets. They're at 6 teams now. My understanding, Kate, they want to almost double that in about 5 years' time, but they're going to take it slow. They're going to process this thing out. They'd like to add 2 teams as early as next season. It might be a little aggressive depending on environment, but Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago, Quebec City are 4 markets definitely on their list, and there's interest from other parties as well. Vegas, Vancouver, a few others. I don't know how far west they're going to go in the first round of expansion. Got to keep travel in mind, all the other different elements. But these are markets that are going to be entering the mix. Calgary as well to an extent, and a few others in the United States. But they've already got a game lined up, Ottawa and Montreal in Quebec City at the Videotron Center. So that's definitely a target for them. We know they like Detroit. We'll see what kind of ownership groups step up. And another market to look at, Denver. My understanding, there will be a neutral site game in Denver this season. Looks like Vancouver might get one as well. And we'll see the Pittsburghs and Chicagos in that mix. So the P-Dub definitely improving, definitely expanding, definitely on the rise, which is definitely exciting for women's hockey and the game in general.
Absolutely. It's been so cool to watch how well they've been received and how strong the fan support has been. That's just been awesome. And yeah, hopefully the expansion gets going. And I mean, I'm not mad about all the cities you named. I'd go.
Yeah, an extra road trip, get in a PWHL game, get in an NHL game, mix in some other elements as well. Look, the game is growing on a variety of different fronts. And on the men's side, on the women's side, overall, these are all great things. And one of the things that we always like to do, we like to propel the athletes and their personalities. The personalities of the women's game, fantastic as well. And they're going to polarize that as the league continues to grow, which is great for great for the game overall and great for young girls and ladies that are trying to get into this space.
Yeah, I did actually lose women's longest drive in a golf tournament to Laura Stacy. Never actually lost before, but she's got about 2 feet on me in height, a lot of power, and she's great. So I'll concede. I'm okay. She beat me. It's fine. We're still friends. It's all
there
good.
You go. One of the stars of the Montreal Victoire, Laura Stacy.
She's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. This has been the latest on the 4th period presented by CCM Hockey. 4 games on tap tonight in the NHL. And of course, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, and then the Hall of Fame game in Toronto. Are you heading to that one?
I will be there. I will be there on Saturday night. I'll be there tonight as well. Detroit's in town.
All right. Thanks so much for this.